Okay, good morning everyone. This is John Stewart. I'm based in Sydney and I'm a technical specialist for data management. Uh, so, you know, I get around basically and meet customers in Brisbane, Melbourne and Perth. So if you want to take some of my time and meet with me when I'm in these cities to go over Vault and discuss some of the challenges you're facing with data management, please reach out to me and we can set up some time together. So today we're going to basically go over what's the added value to Vault that can add to your business. So if you had attended our meeting, the webinar on Tuesday morning, it was really discussing three basic things that are challenging you today in the way that you manage data. So I'm going to go beyond that and discuss some other areas where Vault can help you. So really the agenda today is going to be, let's discuss what PDM is, then have a look at what the challenges are, what are the process related challenges you're facing, and then ultimately do some demonstrations on how Vault is going to be able to solve those problems. So I put everyone on mute, so if you have a question, please submit it through the questions box, and at the end there'll be a Q&A and I can answer those questions. So I'm going to do a poll basically to see where you are as a user, to really understand how Vault can solve your problems and really help me, direct me on where to focus on the discussion today. So if you could please, I'll give you another 15 minutes, select what you do today to manage documents, and we will then okay, so let's close the poll, and now I'm going to share it with you. So really it's 40% of you are using network drives and or 60% are network drives, 40% Vault. So really I'm going to discuss mostly how users will move off the network drives, and then also give the current Vault professional users some insight into additional functionality that exists that you may not be using today. Okay, so as you probably know, PDM is really a strategy about managing your product or even project related data that is really a single source of truth. And what we find from a survey done that the top 30% performers are more likely to be using PDM as a way to be more productive and to really manage their data. So I'm going to actually be able to give you access to these surveys so that you can actually go through them yourself. There's two surveys that were done, and in the next slide I'll give you a link to those. So based on our discussion on Tuesday, really the three key areas that they find would benefit you in how you manage your data is finding your data, once you find it, being able to reuse that, and then ultimately being able to collaborate that data and documents with your colleagues internally or externally. So those are the three core things that you can get by implementing Vault. If you look at other areas, it's like being able to visualize, be able to automate, and really we'll dive into those today. So we see a lot of people who basically are still printing out drawings and moving them around the engineering department to get people to review or to approve them. And in some cases they're creating manila folders, they put in product lines, they're using them. It's a really paper-driven process for review and approval. And this means you're restricted to being in an office environment and ultimately sharing with that. So it doesn't scale very well. It ultimately, puts you in a position of not capturing that data. Everything then is tied back into paper and in envelopes that probably then get stored in a closet, that ultimately doesn't help you when it comes to reviewing or finding that information if you needed it in the case of a failure on a part. So lots of reasons why moving from paper to digital is definitely a plus. And it is, as well as putting it in electronic format, you're now speeding up the ability to have electronic approval, writing to numerous people, having it in their inbox, and then be able to sign off. So this is what the key that Vault would be able to give you that benefit. So that ultimately you're controlling your data and making sure that you don't share the wrong designs with the consumers of your data. And then also, you're probably maintaining bills and materials inside of spreadsheets, and then you're manually entering those into external systems. So throughout all of this process, there's an opportunity to, make mistakes. And, the advantages of data management is that, you spend less time, wasted time, and ultimately, there's fewer understandings that occur because, the data is all in a central source of truth. So we're going to look at really the three other key areas to look at is really managing change, working on data that's correct, and then ultimately being able to share that. So you probably have seen a lot of, potential change orders that look like this, in the sense that you have a very structured form that ultimately is manually kept and filled out and then passed around the office. Based on who has to sign off on it, they'll physically sign that, and it's kept in a manila envelope and then passed around. So, it's difficult in that stage because you don't know what the status of the change order is, because it's potentially sitting on somebody's desk. There's lots of manual revising happening. Feedback is having to be really, personal and together to understand it, and really, giving people access to this data becomes challenging. And what we see with putting in an electronic data management system is basically streamlining that process and being able to, make sure you have your processes and ultimately release those through some form of workflow and approval. So, you get more people who are included in the feedback, being able to give, feedback to the changes, and ultimately, hopefully speed up the whole process. So I'll jump into a Vault demo and show you what power there is in Vault to be able to help you do that. So I'm going to basically run through a new product line. I'm going to log in as Dave Designer, and ultimately I'm going to release this product into Vault and then pass it through a workflow. So one of the key things that Vault does very well is it helps you be able to classify what parts there are, and then being able to apply a life cycle to those parts or documents, and ultimately then have revision control on them. And with the life cycle, then you can apply security in that only specific people can do action on specific parts at a time. So it really controls how people interact with the system and ultimately release data. So in this example, I'm going to open up a gaming system, and I'm then going to be able to check it into Vault. So this is brought together lots of different parts, and within the interface inside of Inventor, you've got the ability to do a direct check-in to Vault. So basically, builds all the relationships. You do have the ability down here to define creation of viewable files. You also have the ability to check in models. Just do this a second. And then you can So you have the ability to scan through a whole document. If there's 2D drawings associated, they'll pick those up. They'll bring them in as part of the whole check-in. So that the whole model gets checked into Vault, and then we have the ability to assign these categories to these and apply life cycles and revisions to them. So once the document's checked in, at this point, you can manually be able to set it up that you could do lifecycle changes directly on it, or you can restrict the system to say that only changes are applied through a change order process. And that's a configurable setting within Vault. You can basically define through the change order whether you want to restrict lifecycle changes to these documents using change orders. And then if I try to do a state change on this document, it will flag me and say you can't do this. It has to really release through a change order process. So I'll quickly just show you what categories and life cycles look like. So in this case, you can put categories on folders, files, and items. And really, in this case, I've defined an engineering category that has a specific life cycle defined to it and a specific revision sequence tied to it. And then I've got a number of properties that I want to be describing this part when it gets checked in. So this is the core of Vault document lifecycle, having these workflows with relationships and properties. As you can see, you can have multiple life cycles applied to a category. So you could have a prototyping workflow that's for the first, in the initial preliminary design, you could have just work release, so you're being able to capture the history as you do that. I've seen cases where the revision scheme may be numeric for pre-release, and it's where you're saving and keeping those historical versions, and then ultimately when you go to production, you can change the life cycle to a longer, more inclusive process of review, checking, and release, and ultimately you may even change the revision scheme from numeric to alpha, and ultimately follow the process that you have today. So that's the core thing. You also have these rules that ultimately when files get checked in, you can define if the file extension is an assembly, then put them into category engineering. So you build out these different rules for different types of documents to assign them to categories that ultimately give them life cycles, revision schemes, and properties. And one of the key things around the life cycle definitions is that you then have the ability to control who can see different files at this this lifecycle state. So only the design department can see files work in progress. Nobody in engineering or production or purchasing have the ability to see what you're working on that's being changed. They'll only be able to potentially see what's in release. Also, we can define through the states transitions specific actions. So currently I'm logged in as Dave Designer, so if I log in as an administrator, you can see exactly the different workflows that I can define. So in the case of a flexible life cycle, I have the ability to define on transitions specific properties. You can set up a criteria saying I need properties filled out, I need to synchronize, I need to make sure the children are released, that ultimately I'm releasing a parent or an assembly, and that all the children are also released at that time. And then I can also then basically assign who has the ability to be able to make these changes from these two states. Typically what we do is we define groups of people and then ultimately assign people to the groups to be able to make those life cycle changes. So as you can see, there's lots that happen around the setup and configuration of these workflows. That it is very configurable and basically really helps control who does what and when throughout this workflow. So let me jump in and show you how we attach this assembly to a change order and then write that through a change order. So as you can see, everything is set in work in progress. In this case, I think it's a configuration member, so it's from an I assembly. So I'm going to basically put this whole product on a change order. It's going to be a new change order. And ultimately, this is, like your paper ECO. It's routing it through a different group of people. Initially, this is your cover page. There is ability to put properties to define, what's the reason for change? Is there, is it initial release? Is it who's the customer? Do you need specific individuals to sign off on it? And really, you can define and capture that information up front. You also see that it's attached all of the documents to the ECO. And as it goes through the writing, we will capture lots of comments against that ECO. And there is the ability then to make markups and give feedback so that as it goes through, you can have external people reviewing it that aren't necessarily part of the design team who are capturing that feedback, and everything is contained with the ECO for reference. And then historically, you can go to these parts in the future and see them at different revisions and then look at the change orders that ultimately control that change. So you'll see here I've basically got some routing lists, so I'm going to change that to a core group of Dave the designer, Ed the engineer, Mike the manager, and Charlie checker. And you'll see this is the workflow that's available. Anybody can create change orders. Then you have this sort of gatekeeper who would then assign it to a responsible engineer to work on. And then it would go to a checker who would then iterate it with the engineer or designer to make sure it meets and conforms to all of your processes. Then ultimately it gets sent over to a review stage, and here you can have multiple people reviewing, and you can make it unanimous that all of them have to approve it before you can go to the approved state and close the ECO. And at the approved state, this is where you would release the parts that are on the change order or initial change order that ultimately then lock the documents in a release state and ultimately at a revision. So I'm going to save this ECO. I'm going to actually log back out and log back in as Dave the engineer. Let's see. Or Dave the designer. Let's see. It's in the work state. Let me go back as administrator. You'll see also on the left-hand side you have this work order or work list. So basically, as the ECO goes through these different transitions, you, based on your role in the process, will be notified that you have actions to be completed. So in this case, as the administrator, I'm going to submit it, and it'll go to Mike the manager, who's ultimately the change administrator. So on every transaction, it will then request you to add comments, and these comments then get captured as every action happens through the workflow. There'll be comments created. It'll be there traceable for history. So I'm going to log back in as Mike the manager, and then I'm going to assign it to Dave the designer. At this point, Mike the manager could review the change order, determine that it's not actually of any value and that it needs to be either cancelled or put on hold for a future date based on maybe the criticality of the change request. In this case, it's initial release, so I'm going to basically push it right through the process. You have the ability in specific simpler cases to actually do a force approval right away. In this case, I'm gonna submit it to the next phase, which is ultimately the responsible engineer. And in this case, if we look at the writing list, responsible engineer is Dave, the designer. So Dave is going to log in and then ultimately has the ability to check out the models, make changes if these were released. These were previous released models or drawings, and then ultimately check these out to be changed, and then make his changes, check them back in. We do have in this system, put a restriction that you can't go to the next stage of the change order when the documents and records are set at work in progress. So if I was to try and I submit this, it's going to come back and say, we can't do that because the documents aren't in theory locked. So Dave would actually come in here, edit it, select all of the files, and then he would basically change the state to the next for review. And this is where it gets sent then to. He can now submit this to Charlie Checker. And Charlie Checker will come in and basically can iterate the files and ultimately put red line marks, and I'll show you that now. So if I log in as Charlie Checker, you'll see he's got a notification for a change order. If he probably can't edit it because his job is just to check it, he could view it and respond, or he could add markups. So in this case, he could come into this file, and then he can create a viewable file that then ultimately becomes available to markup. Let's see. I'm going to actually send it, do an update of the model. So while that's happening, at this point, Charlie's gone through. He can click through all of these. We can actually set it up that these files are basically generated on a state change, so they're automatically set up. So he can come in here, and then he's got a fully active markup. In this case, it's a model, so he can only really, put one comment. But if it was a 2D document, he has the ability to balloon things, put different markers, put stamps on it, and really, give across the design intent. So once you've done that, you basically will then save the model or the markup back into the system. It'll be available and ultimately it's attached to the ECO for future reference. So we attach all of the markups to the ECO for history. We basically define who the person is and ultimately allows you to see the history. But so in this case, he's now going to save it, and then he's going to potentially send it back or approve it. In this case, I'm not going to reject it. I'm going to approve it to the next stage, and you'll see here then it's sitting in review stage. So at this point, with the writing list set up, the approvers are Mike, manager, and Ed, engineer. So I'll quickly log in as those guys and then show you the fact that it doesn't move beyond approve because it's set up as a unanimous approver. So in this case, it's going to stay in review state until Mike, the manager, can log in and actually review and make his comments as well. In this case, he's going to respond, he's going to approve it, and you'll see now it moves in the approval state. So in this case, Mike, the manager, is the final approver, so he's going to come in to he's going to edit the change order, and then he's going to basically release the complete assembly, and then he's going to close the change order. So you see the whole part has been released, and it's locked. So this is the workflow for being able to streamline, and ultimately, if you look at any of the parts now that have been released, you have that traceability to come back and look at a file and say, what was the change order? Go to that change order and ultimately see all of the comments of who approved it, why it went through the approval process. If there was any markups, they will be attached to it, and really you have a traceability forevermore to see who worked on this part, who released it, and ultimately you have this from a history point of view. So that's really the key functions I wanted to show around being able to do engineering changes, being able to review, and ultimately drive better efficiency through an electronic change order process. Okay, so let's go to the next section. So one of the other things that we find is that being able to manage bill of materials and having accurate BOMs is really a manual process. It's really been manually managed, typically in spreadsheets. That's been taken from the CAD data, then it's been entered into the spreadsheet, either doing an export from AutoCAD Mechanical or Inventor, and ultimately then you're having to manage those BOMs and be able to manage the changes and then ultimately hand them over to an external system. Whether you as a designer or an engineer do that in the external system, sometimes you throw it over the wall to a specialist whose job is to maintain and manage that data entry to your planning system. So Vault gives you the benefit of being able to automatically generate BOMs, being able to now add additional columns to those BOMs, and really being able to control and report on those BOMs, so you see what changes are happening as they move through the life cycle, as parts change on your products. And really the intelligence of pulling the BOMs out of the models and the three is really the basis of this, so that there's no potential mistakes, and ultimately you've got that traceability. And then finally then you can take that data and those BOMs and then pass them over to your enterprise ERP system. So let's do a quick demo of that. I'll show you a padlock that we have in the system that ultimately was checked in. At this point, it's quite a large BOM, and you can see inside of Vault you have the ability to see where it's been used. You can look at parts and say where are they being used, what's being used, so you can see the whole family where parts are actually being used. So we see a lot of customers that configure their views to give them more intelligent thumbnails, which is really good, and that's really easy to do through a custom view. You can come down and really easily configure all of the columns based on the properties that you've defined, and ultimately you've got a lot of control over that. So you can also come in here and filter. So if I said I only wanted to see assemblies, if I wanted to see the drawings, so you've got that ability through this interface to really see what you want. And you can also come in here and let's do all, and then you can do multi-selects, and then you could actually do, if needed, you can do exports to Excel that basically will pull out all of the columns. So you can basically fill out as many columns as you want and get good reporting out of it. You also have, within Vault we have reporting capabilities to support viewing and looking at different life cycles and what's in what state and who's working on different parts of your product at the time. And really, as you get into having a platform like Vault, now you have visibility, you have the ability to start looking at where things are, what's happening to them, and really give you visibility into what parts are taking longer, or if, there's lots of different ways to look at your data to determine, is it heavy, and well, just looking at it can tell you if files are not set up right. You can and really do a quick review, but it's just a reflection of the data that's in your folder, and ultimately just gives you better visibility and reporting on what it is. So let's look at this padlock. I'm going to now assign it to an item. So in the Vault world, we've just been talking about documents and document life cycles and revisions and managing those on change orders. If you move into the item world is about, it describes the part, it describes the documents that relate to that part. I mean, if you had simulation reports, or you've got your 2D annotations or simulations and presentation files, you basically, it's all describing a specific part, and really an item is about containing all that information together. Then it ultimately shows you then all of the bill of materials and the quantities that build up that part. So in this case, I'm going to do assign item on the padlock parent, and you'll see right away it's picking up that there's a drawing, there's a presentation, and there's an assembly. And it ultimately then pulls out the bill of materials and shows you the quantities, and allows you to have more information. So we can configure Vault to put BOM rows, and ultimately help you define and classify what these type of files are. And the idea is that this matches to the data entry that you need to do in your ERP system. And here, as an engineering department, you have a clean interface to be able to manage and control and add, spare parts or, associated things that you don't model that ultimately you want to attach to your bill of materials. So I'm just going to save that. And you'll see here we put icons on the side to show you that parts have got bills of materials on them. And ultimately you can quickly go to the item and see what's going on. So we can set this up to be a specific user only sees items and ultimately can come in and view this part of the the item and bill of materials world, and ultimately they can come in and move up and down and look at different things. They can go and look in the View tab and actually see if there's a model to it, view the drawings, and basically review it. In this case, we just need to set up that on check-in that ultimately all of the files are creating these views, so the user can see them. But once they're in the system, they can quickly come in and set that up. So there is a configuration that allows you to, as you see, create a watermark. You can, position that in different places based on a setting through the administration console, so that really it alerts people to where the state, where this document is in its life cycle, and ultimately, they won't, in this case, hopefully send that out to a supplier because it's still in process. But as you review it and release it, these will change and ultimately control and give the visibility to the downstream consumers of the data, so that they know that it is released. In this case, we'd probably not leave and let them see any of this documents until it is released. So let's go back to the assembly, and then ultimately go to the item, and then we'll edit it. Open. you have the ability here to, you know, add other rows. You can add existing rows, or you could add new rows. If in this case you wanted to create a new part, you can, or you know, if it's a process. So these are all configurable to allow you to set up. So I'm going to do a product, and I'm basically going to, it automatically auto numbers it. It tells you that it was manually added to the system. If it's a spare part, you can select that there. These numbering schemes can easily be changed depending on how you want to set those up. So we can define different numbering schemes. We can basically have it mapped to a file. In this case, you've seen all of the padlock is mapped, but this doesn't have a file attached to it. But if we were to actually come in and attach a file, which we can do in the edit mode, you can ultimately then attach spec sheets. In this case, if I was going to say it wasn't it was glue or oil that you want to have with the packaging, you know, you can get the spec sheets, you can fill in the information related to what that additional product is that you're adding onto it. So really, you know, the key thing also is being able to then look at different versions of the models and then see changes that are happening over the actual life of this bill of materials. So you'll start seeing what's being added, what's been removed as you revision and release this. So, you know, as the life of the product goes through, you will be making changes to them, and you really can see where those changes are that ultimately then need to get sent over to your ERP system. So, okay, let's just back to the slides. So the last key thing I want to talk about is, you know, collaborating beyond your department. And really, you know, I mentioned it on Tuesday, there's lots of pressures on the engineering design department to provide the documentation, and a lot of the downstream departments look at as the bottleneck is coming from the distribution or data that's getting produced. So with having a system like Vault, you know, you're basically managing all of your data in a single source of truth, and it's now about giving those individuals access to it when they need to, and ultimately there's, you know, the transfer of this reference data to them is easier, and you know, it may be just automatically once you release a drawing or a bill of materials that ultimately they get access to being able to view that. So that's key to speeding up the process and ultimately hopefully reducing the pressures on your department to being the bottleneck of the users who actually need the data. So Vault is, you know, it's in its simplest form, it's a single site, but it can scale to multiple offices with multiple file servers, and even in cases, you know, geo-based databases. So the architecture is really scalable to help minimize the amount of time people wait for getting data and ultimately bringing data to the right individuals who need that data. And we have lots of customers who have multi-site set up between Sydney and Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne, Sydney and Singapore, and really, as you see, you know, the expansion of design centers and acquisitions of products in key markets, your companies are bringing in other design centers or other consumers of the design data. So it's really important to have a platform that can scale to that to help get the data to the right people that need it to be able to either manufacture or service or you know, purchase from it. So it's definitely key. From a point of view of the architecture, you know, this is straightforward to set up and expand and build upon, and really, you know, we see a lot of success with with individuals who are doing that. With Vault Professional, you also get access to a product called Buzzsaw, which is really like it's Autodesk version of Dropbox, and it's a securely hosted environment where Vault will publish data up through Dropbox, so you can say when documents or items are released, then this is the time to push specific documents to Buzzsaw, and individuals who are outside of your company can be notified that those files have been posted to Buzzsaw, and then they have the ability to come in and consume them, mark them up, attach them back into Buzzsaw, and then those get synced back down into Vault. So Vault is definitely a central source of truth, but when you want to extend beyond your firewall or into your customers who don't have access to your systems for IP reasons, Buzzsaw is that medium ground to be able to get data out to them. And really, we have three modes of collaboration, actually 4 if you include Buzzsaw for the external suppliers. Vault Professionals for the one-to-one CAD designer, creator of data, then managers and approvers who, they would be just coming in through and interfacing with the change order to review and mark up the documents that would have been created, and ultimately then as you release the data, you have the consumers that are coming in through the web client that ultimately will only see data that's been released, and they can view it and see it from there. And then again, the fourth one is publishing it to Buzzsaw externally. So let's have a quick look at that. From a point of view of the web client, Vault is built in. When you install it, it's up and ready. As an administrator, you have a few options. You can, set up banners to make it look your company logo. You can define, you can turn on and off and say, I want to show them everything, but in most cases what we see in this web client, you want to restrict them to searching and finding only released items, finding and releasing and only seeing released files. You can configure here how the grid looks and ultimately how it's presented to the end user. So if I log out and log in as say shop floor, we ultimately only want them to consume data that's been released. They'll come in here and basically can do their same searches that you can through the thick client. If they know a specific name or number, they'll basically be able to get that, get to that file. Let's go back up. So let's do a search. Let's do a wildcard search. See what they see. So in this case, the gaming system is released. If they click on that, they'll be able to see. In this case, it's assembly, so there's no DWIF file generated. So ultimately, what we do is on release within Vault, we have a setting to say synchronize all the properties and then generate a DWIF file. So ultimately, the end consumer has that to be able to see it. Let me just see if this is where we have a product. It's the job server that ultimately will kick in and go through and generate your DWIF files. So let's just see here. So in this case, let's go over here. If we do a search on the product, we go to say a housing, they'll have the ability to view that file, and ultimately they can open up in design review and be able to mark it up. In the case of actually, they can do a markup straight inside of the viewer. If they found something, for instance, in the shop floor that needed some fixing, If it was the 2D documentation had some missing annotations, they can easily take that out, mark it up, and then basically provide that back to you. To ultimately, you have a decision then to kick off a change order, to ultimately make the change and send it back through a reviewer, and then make decisions on whether it impacts inventory. Is there a longer lead time because the part you need has to be produced and brought in-house? So ultimately you're bringing the external individuals outside of the engineering department in, having the ability to see everything you're doing from a release point of view and be part of that process, which today maybe it's just them waiting for printed copies and versions that ultimately just take a long time to get out. So it definitely speeds up the process. From a point of view of Vault and Buzzsaw, I'll just launch Vault and show you. You have the ability to publish from within Buzzsaw or within Vault. So, as part of the process, you could set it up to push data out of Vault, and really you configure where that goes, and that's part of the administration, is setting up a mapping to Buzzsaw to say files get pushed to this specific location. So you would build in particularly customers that you want to share data with, or specific suppliers you want to share data with. You can, from within Vault, basically do add or update to Vault or push to Vault those models or even drawings, and it will take it back a job server to pick those up and transfer them over to the Buzzsaw site. And Buzzsaw site is very similar to the Vault client in that let's see, Buzzsaw site. So for the customer or supplier, it looks very similar. They would be controlled and locked down to only potentially see the folders that you define them to have access to, and ultimately, they would log in and only be able to access the data that's there. Okay. All right. So that's, in summary, what over Tuesday and today was really telling you about how Vault can solve your problems by helping you find things, reuse data, be able to collaborate with other designers, and then ultimately streamline the whole process of releasing and approving those models and products, ultimately building bills and materials that you can then share with your planning system, and then ultimately share that data with the other members in the other departments, with suppliers, with customers. So it's really a full based system that ultimately can help speed up and manage what you do. And Vault is only a tool. It's really as good as the data you put in it, and ultimately having your teams embracing it and engaging and using it, and then ultimately there is mapping out your processes into the system and making sure it works for your users. Vault is very configurable in that sense. It can manage and map to the way you do things today, and ultimately not hopefully create much change other than you're moving them from a paper base to a electronic base. And 40% of the users on the call are using Vault, so it's ultimately how do you use Vault to its full potential to be able to give you this efficiency and productivity that it can provide you. So lots of information on Vault, and at the end I'll show you websites that ultimately have that information, but these are four that I recommend. Definitely the university classes, there's lots of customer input around how they built and configured Vault, and lots of material out there for you to consume on the public domain. I can release this presentation to you, and ultimately you'll get all these hyperlinks to help you to look at those as well. So, you know, at Autodesk, we're used the knowledge vaults. We want our global community to be able to share and help, and ultimately the Autodesk Knowledge Network is the key area where we bring all that data together. So if you haven't been using it, please use it, and that will help you, you know, stay informed and learn about our products. We also have an apps store that allows our partners or even customers develop functionality to you know, improve and make Vault better. And really, if you haven't, take a look at that site as well. One that we recommend is this Charact Organize. It's got like 5 or 6 different features that ultimately try to help manage properties and data, and ultimately, you know, speed up the processes and facilitate it. So take a look at that if you have some time. Another one that I recommend is CAD Learning. It's an online training courses. It's really, you know, we're moving to that type of base training where you can watch videos and ultimately you have data sets and do it at your own time. So I think, you know, CAD Learning has a subscription-based model, provides you access to be able to, you know, consume it when you want on a monthly. So you could rent it for a month and then get your training done, and I think it's like $50 or less. So, so to close, we have Autodesk University happening in August 21st in Sydney in the Hilton. So, you know, if you are in the area and you're available, well recommend that this is an event that you sign up for and come along to. Lots of good speakers, customers showing you how they've been successful using Vault, how they've been successful using Autodesk solutions in the building, infrastructure, manufacturing space. So, you know, basically we service, in Australia, predominantly manufacturers service a lot of these markets because of the infrastructure that's happening in the mining industry. So, you know, come along and see what's going on. And then today there's going to be a final webinar that goes into deep dive into copy design, which we feel is a differentiator for helping you manage inventor models, being able to copy design. So if you're available, please join that. Okay, so with that, we have some questions and answers. Let me pull up that and see if we've got any questions. At this point, I don't see any. All right. So if you do have any questions or you want more additional information, please reach out to me or reach out to your partner who basically have a team. Most of them have teams of specialists who understand Vault and how you can implement it in your business. And hopefully you got something out of that today, and I look forward to you joining the next one. With that, thank you.